Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fishing a Flare. Today I'm going to be doing a video on Fluke Fishing 101. And here I have two different brands of Flukes. This is a Gambler Super Stud, and this is just a Zoom Super Fluke. This is the original. I do throw both. They're pretty much exactly the same. I usually just base it off of color as which one I'll prefer. And I'll go into like the rod, the reel, the line, and when and how and where to throw it, like I normally do. So, I'm going to start off with the rod and reel. I have a Shimano Symmetry reel. This one I actually won in a contest on YouTube by the name of the AM Outdoorsman. He has a YouTube channel, makes fishing videos, and I won his contest. So that's why I have the Shimano on that. Then for a rod, I have a Cabela's Tournament IM7. This one I've had for quite some time. I don't spend that much money on spinning rods. I might have a nice shaky head rod or a drop shot rod, and that's about it. For fluke fishing, you don't need an expensive rod, so don't let anyone talk you into getting an expensive rod to fish mainly a fluke. I mean, this is the only thing I fish on this rod is a fluke. It's my fluke rod, and what you want is, as you can see, it's a bigger spinning rod. It's a medium heavy, so it's a kind of a big, stout, long 7-foot spinning rod. And when you're fishing a fluke, you do want something with a lot of backbone. And the reason why I go with a spinning rod is because you do a lot of skipping with a fluke. And you can use a bait caster, and if you can skip a fluke with a bait caster, then go for it. I'm not that great at it, and I would rather just use a spinning rod because I can skip it much farther. Don't have to worry about bird's nests and stuff like that. When you're skipping with a bait caster, you usually have to buy a really high quality bait caster and a rod that fits the skipping criteria really good. And I don't skip that often, so I don't want to spend all the money just for a rod to do that. So I just go with this one, a spinning rod. So if you're starting out fluke fishing, definitely go with the spinning rod. And for line, I have 15-pound Vicious braid. This I use braid because there's no stretch, and when you're skipping it, you can skip it farther and cast it farther. And I tie directly to the hook. I don't use a leader or anything like that. I'm not worried about the fish seeing it. And 15-pound braid's a good all-around for spinning rods. For my shaky head, drop shot, and fluke rod, I do use 15-pound braided line, and I will use a leader if necessary. For a knot, you're going to want to do a Palomar knot because it's braided line, so you're going to do the Palomar knot. If you don't know how to do it, you can always YouTube it, and or I'll probably make a video with it in the future. Important thing you want to do with flukes is, so as you can see here, I have a round bend hook. I have a 5/0 round bend hook. That's the only hook I use for flukes. I don't like the EWGs. I don't ever use an EWG unless I'm using like a really, really big swim bait, like a hollow belly swim bait. I use round bends because the hookup ratios are better, and just the overall leverage you get off of a round bend over an EWG is much greater. So you're going to want to go with a bigger 5/0 hook. It adds a little bit more weight with the bigger one, so then you'll be able to cast it farther, and it helps it sink a little faster. You can always put this on a Texas rig and fish it a little deeper. I've done that every once in a while, or put like a little split shot up front, or a weighted hook or whatever. But I like fishing it just on a regular hook. You skip it under there, and you kind of just work it out like a topwater spook. If you've ever fished a spook, that's exactly how you work it. You cast it out, or a weightless sinker. You cast it out, and you kind of let it swim down, sink down a little bit, and you twitch it, and it goes like this, and it pops up and down, and kind of walks like a spook and has erratic action. And it's basically a do-nothing bait is what I call it. So you cast it out there, and you let it sink. Most of the time, you're going to get your bites on the fall, and if not, then you just kind of have to twitch it. You just kind of twitch it like you would a spook, a frog, a popper. You just want to do short, light twitches. You need to watch it. It'll kind of dart up and down, back and forth, and that's how you're going to want to have to work it. So I'm going to move my rod, and I'll show you just a couple quick tips for flukes. Some stuff that I haven't really heard too many people talk about. So I'll take out the hook, and I'll show you how to rig it. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab your hook, and you're going to want to hold your fluke like this. You're going to go straight into the nose, just a little bit, just kind of like that far. Then you're going to go out the bottom, slide it all the way up, and then go out the top. And you can cover the eyelet like I did, or you can have it out. It doesn't really make a difference. What I do know is if you hook the hook on closer to the underbelly, so let's say you, hopefully you can see this, let's say you hook it just like this. So instead of going right in the middle, you move it a little bit closer to this side, so you do something like this. So I'll put this all the way up. So you can see there, it's uneven. That will make your fluke rise, and that's how I like to fish it. When I twitch it, I don't want it I want it to either dart straight or up. I don't want it to dart down. When it darts up, it looks like it's trying to get away from something and it's evading, like a topwater spook would. You know how it's like kind of going across the top. But jerkbaits will dive, and that's great. You can do it. This is a soft plastic jerkbait, but I like them going up because if there's a bass behind it or near it, it looks like it's trying to get to the surface and escape. And so that's why I like it to go up. Plus, I like to watch my flukes when I'm fishing. I like to be able to watch it almost all the way back to the boat for the most part, unless I'm fishing deep. And the same goes for if you want it to dive down, and you can unrig it and rig it like this. You can put it towards the back of the bait like this, and then you can get a whole bunch of, make it go through a whole bunch of the plastic. So then that way the hook is riding a little bit closer to this side versus this side. So this way it'll make it dive a little bit more. So if you want it to dive, you want more of the plastic below the hook. If you're holding the hook like this, if you want it to dive, you want most of the plastic below the hook. If you want it to rise, you want most of the plastic above the hook. And you can always, this is how you rig it. You kind of go through this little slit here, and then you go up and through like that, and then I usually skin hook it. So you'll do this. You'll kind of go in and then pull it back through just to expose that. And what you can do is if you shape your fluke like this, that'll help it dive. And if you want it to rise, you can arch it a little bit. Like, let's see if I can get it. Like that. So you can see this one is kind of up at an, if it's like this, then it's gonna rise. And if you want it to dive a little bit more, then you want to arch it kind of like this. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the fluke. I know that was kind of lengthy and probably confusing to a lot of you guys, but hopefully you can take notes or just remember those quick tips that you can do. And like I said, you can always weight it. If you're thinking your fluke's too shallow, the bass a little deeper, you can always weight it. And before I go, I want to mention I do have another channel, Flare Fishing Reviews. The link is down below. Go check that out. I will have reviews over lots of different baits I've already done. I think like probably between 5 and 10 videos over all of the topwater frogs that I use on the water, footage, as well as an in-depth review on how to use it and everything about it. So I just wanted to throw it in there before I forget. But anyways, back to the fluke fishing. So like I said, you want to use a round bend hook. I use 5/0. You can use smaller if you want, but I do like the bigger hook. You get better hookup ratios. Gambler Super Stud is my favorite brand, but you can always go with the Zoom Super Fluke. It just depends on the colors. They have different colors, both brands do, so that's why I like to do that. For the rods and reels, you want to go with the spinning rod, and you want it to be 7 foot for the most part. If you're skipping only docks, maybe go down to like a 6'6", 6'8", 6'10". But I do cast mine pretty far sometimes, so I do go with a 7 foot. You want a heavy rod, so you want a medium heavy, fast action rod, especially fast action. You need a fast action to make short, quick twitches with the fluke. Spinning rod, like I said, you want spinning reel, spinning rod, doesn't really matter. You don't need high quality gear for this. This is one of the techniques where you don't need high quality gear. Your spinning reel can be a $25 Walmart one, and same with your rod. As long as your rod's heavy enough and your reel doesn't, as long as your drag works, I guess, then you're probably fine. 15-pound braid. If you're starting out, some people do use fluorocarbon, but braid is strong, cast far, and overall just better for fluke fishing. So that's it. Hopefully you guys kind of understood a little bit about fluke fishing. I know a lot of you guys don't do it, and some of you guys wanted to know a little bit more about it. So that's it for today's episode, and thanks for watching.